Hi everybody, welcome to another makeover, and in today's video I'm going to be transforming this gorgeous mid-century modern dresser. It was made in 1954 and I believe there is a beautiful English oak veneer underneath this beautiful white paint. It is not white anymore because I think this dresser came from the house where people smoked a lot, so it looks kind of yellowish. This dresser has a really good bones, it's a solid wood. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this part, lower the top, so it will look better in my opinion. And it is finally warming up to work outside, so let's go. I removed the hardware and then I started stripping the drawers. I applied my favorite circa 1850 and then I covered everything with the tinfoil. And yes, tinfoil works the same way as a plastic wrap for me. And look at this after 15 minutes. I believe there is two types of people in this world. The first type finds the stripping process disgusting and the second one finds it satisfying. If you are the first one, skip to this time. And if you're the second one, enjoy. The stripper did a really good job, and those leftovers of the paint I could easily remove with 120 grit sandpaper. And of course, there was some paint left in the wood grain. To remove the paint, I used my stripper, some methyl hydrate, and the brass wire brush, and a lot of labor, of course. I bought this brush, it's a brass brush, but it turned out that it wasn't a brass, it was probably aluminum, I don't know, because after contacting with the stripper, that brass color turned into a silver metal color. But anyways, it was soft enough and it didn't scratch the veneer. When I was finally done with the paint, I sanded all drawers with 150 and then with 220 grit. So I'm downstairs again, inside, and for the top, I'm not going to be using a stripper. I already tried, and I'm going to scrape it. I was going to scrape the sides as well, but it turned out that the top coat was really thin, so 120 grit was enough to remove it. While the dresser was on its sides, I decided to remove those planks, but it turned out that there's just this one large board, and it's in there in the frame. I was gonna make like a decorative element here. Let's see if I can do that. If you remember, my original plan was to lower the top, but then I changed my mind because I had different idea. To get rid of those planks, I made a cut with my circular saw. It wasn't a perfect cut, but I decided to deal with this later, and I move on to sanding the top. Because the top had lots of scratches, I started with 100 grit sandpaper. I was hoping that the lower grade sandpaper would help to remove some of them. Beautiful, beautiful oak veneer. But yeah, here's those burning marks. I can see there is a watermark, multiple scratches. Before dealing with the scratches, I had to get rid of the leftovers of the paint and the wood grain. And this time I decided to try just a methyl hydrate and it worked. It helped to remove that paint. But what I did, I carbonized some areas with my wire brush, which was supposed to be a brass brush. There's lots of scratches on the top. I'm gonna try to get rid of them using my iron. I'm gonna try and steam them out. I was able to steam out most of the scratches, but before starting sanding, I had to deal with those ebonized areas. I mixed an oxalic acid with some water, with some hot water. It's supposed to be 1 to 10 ratio, but I just eyeball it. I applied the oxalic acid to the top and I let it sit for about 15 minutes. I didn't wait until it completely dried, and then I washed the surface with a decent amount of water. Sometimes I use some baking soda to deactivate the oxalic acid, but not this time because I only applied one coat and water was just enough. When the top was completely dried, I set it with 120, then jumped to 150 and finished with 220 grit. To smooth my not perfect cut out, I used the planner and then I set it everything with 120 and of course jumped to 150 and 220. Okay, all done here. Straight, plain, and yeah, screwed up here, but anyways, I'm gonna cover it. And here I put some epoxy glue mixed with sawdust. And now I gotta figure out what to do here. I had one idea, but now I think it's not worth it because it's very time consuming and too much work for this dresser. So I'm gonna figure out something else. I recently salvaged a new set of blinds and it seemed like it was oak, so I decided to use the blinds for this project as well. I have used blinds before in my two other projects. I will link them in my description box for you to check them out. After I cut the first 10 pieces of the blinds, I decided maybe it's better to sand them before I cut them. And that was actually a really good idea because it turned out that those blinds, they were not wooden. That was an MDF with engraved wood grain. But I still decided to use them because I'm stubborn. I found out that if I just sanded them with 220 grit, I would still have that oak wood grain and nobody's gonna know. I carefully measured and glued the first piece and I clamped it to secure in place so I can build my pattern after that. And then I used some magic. The reality looks a bit different. While my blinds were drying, I stained all 6 drawers with water-based stain in the color Amaretto. My first idea was to build a new base using an old base, but then I changed my mind because I found the legs in my stash and I thought that would be perfect for this dresser. Once the glue was completely dried, I gently sanded my decorative panel by hand with 220 grit. And then I stained the whole body of the dresser with the same water-based stain I used for the drawers. I stained the whole piece and I found this little problem here. I think I didn't sand deep enough into the wood grain and there's still some old finish. So now I gotta resand this. So we have a situation here. That's the other side, and there were just two spots with the old finish. So I decided to sand it partially and reapply the stain, but you see, after that it was even more visible. After that I sanded the whole thing with 150, which was probably not enough, and I reapplied the stain and I have this part here still. So I have to resend it again, and I think I'm gonna start with a 120 or even with 100. No, 120. This is original handles. I clean them and the color is uneven. Here's brass, here is kind of like pinkish copper. So I'm going to spray them. And I forgot to press the record button while I was spraying the handles, so you'll see them only at the end of the video. I'm almost at the finish line here, and the last step is to apply the top coat. For the top coat, I'm using the Rubio monocoat and I'm mixing two parts together in 3:1 ratio. I let Rubio dry for about 12 hours, and once it's dried, I was almost done. Okay, the top coat wasn't the last step. The last step is to attach the hardware and the legs. And we're done. Let me remind you how this dresser looked before, and here's how it looks now. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you guys for your likes and for your comments, for all of your support and for subscription. That means the world to me, really. Thank you so much for watching and see you next Thursday.